Welcome to another debrief. We're going to go over a bunch of stuff from the internet. I know that can be scary, but we're going to take what we can from the internet and learn from it. Let's go. Debrief. Why do we do this? I do this because we doom scroll. We look at dumb shit. I do it all the time. But I generally try to find things that I can put into action or learn from. And then typically I'll actually make notes to myself about things that I can learn from. So I encourage you to do that. Let's go through the exercise. Some of these things some people have sent me, some of these things I found. So let's check it out. Let's start off with something really dumb. Yes, some men are really shaving their eyelashes off. This was sent to me as a joke, but I don't know if it's funny or not. It's a new style trend or something. This is on mensjournal.com. And do not do this like ever is really some of the comments. I'm not really sure what the point is for people doing this, thinking they are for style, but there's, serious protection issues. Yeah, it ain't cool. That actually hurts me just watching that. Yeah, I agree. What are you doing? Your eyelashes actually have function to catching dust and keeping things out of your eyes. So, this is definitely a don't go for style over function. And I don't know who actually thinks eyelashes are not great. So, yeah, I just wanted to start off with something really stupid. Okay, along the lines of getting dumber, let's make this relevant. So, large language models, AI, Chat GPT, they're all the same thing. Yeah. So this article, I was discussing this with a friend of mine who sent this, and yeah, I do think that we have a serious issue where some of these LLMs are going to make us less capable. They're going to make us dumber. And according to the article, here's some ways I use LLMs that I think are making me dumber. So, I've used them in my other job to help me solve coding problems that I just couldn't quite see something or figure out what was going on. I've used it to point out things that I could look for, and I'll go and look at them. I can see where if I started using it to create the actual solution, that I would really get less practice in the thing that I do every day, and that's not good. Like they say, doing fast math homework, not the point of homework. The point of homework is to practice, right? When I need to write an email, I've done that too. I've used it to help me think through email responses and things like that. And I do think it potentially could help, or potentially could erode your ability to think uh, empathetically, or to think about how you actually block out and respond to emails. Um, yeah, and like they say here, if your first response is to go to the AI to help you figure out whatever the thing is, then you are being trained to use that thing over using your own brain, and that is, like they say here, it's a deliberate act on the case of the provider too. You just need to be very aware of that as you're using it, and I can't, you know, I'm not for or against AI necessarily, but I do think that it's problematic in this sense. And this article breaks down historical analogies like calculators. If you think about that, if you think about your use of a calculator, and where you put it, like it has with me, it's diminished my ability to do basic math fast. I just will go to the calculator before I will actually think through it. And GPS, think about that. Think about how you just put that information in Google versus, looking at the map first and thinking about your route. You just relying on that app to route you, and that's a form of AI. You know, there's lots of other things here that they use as things, but I think those are probably the two most obvious and relevant to AI and where it's going. And yeah, so just you know, try to be super aware, you know? Try to be super aware of you're using it. Like it says here, arguments against. I'm just an LLM wrapper. Yeah, if you're just using that, then it's the thing is doing all the work, not you and not your brain. I think one of the main areas that AI can begin to harm you is it's gonna as you become more and more reliant on it, it will work against you being able to create things on your own, like out of whole cloth, create things, and that's really where humans shine. I mean, that's what we do. We make things, we create new things. AI can't do that, not at least not yet. Don't know that it ever will be able to because they've all just learned based on things that have already been made. So anything that you use it to put out into the world that you're claiming is yours is derivative of other things that already exist. You just have to remember that. And then just be aware of where you're using it and keep that top of mind so that you don't just become an LLM wrapper. Old friend of mine, Heaton, he's a serial entrepreneur out of the West Coast. I believe he's from the West Coast still. He might have moved, but that's where I knew him from. He's been putting out some interesting, interesting, thoughtful content. Knowing Heaton, it is probably actually AI generated, which is the connection here. But uh, he's a really thoughtful guy. So he made this post: your life transformed into a dashboard, every moment tracked, health, productivity, mood, all neatly quantified. At first, clarity feels powerful. You have control, but lean in closer. Cognitive load is a number. Social connections are scores. Even caffeine intake is measured. AI nudges prompt you outside for exactly 15 minutes. Precision is appealing, clarity seductive. Yet here's the unsettling truth: when every detail is data, are you enhancing your life or erasing your humanity? Yes, dude. I love that. And the let's see if I can yeah, the detail here of the dashboard is pretty cool. Pretty sure it's not real. God, I hope it's not real. But he's right, man. That seems really cool on the surface, but as you get into it, it is a deep dive into what will be depression. And the thing is, something that I have thought about a lot, which is this first comment here. It's a wrestle. If there isn't an intent to change anything, why measure any of it? And that's kind of my point with a lot of data, health and mental data collection stuff, all the things out there. How many people do you know have the Apple Watch with the health stuff and all that and sleep scores and everything, but never actually put in the work to improve themselves and do anything with the data? And that's kind of the one of the things here, right? You wind up just tracking, and it becomes a fun little exercise to just look at things and track things, to not actually actively work on change and improvement, which is the goal of anything. Any kind of habit building thing would be to improve or to change away from something that's destructive. I thought this was a very cool thought study, little thing to meditate on. If you are out there using all the data tracking, or you're tracking your health or whatever, just think about you're actually how much of that effort you're actually putting into making something better out of the data for yourself personally versus just looking at it. Okay, I've done these before. Always include like a Mark Manson or a Arnold's Pump Club or something. I can't help it. I get a lot of emails and find out, subscribe to a lot of this type of stuff. And, Manson and this Arnold's Pump Club stuff are some of the only ones that I'll read them and actually like take a second and think through. They're usually pretty well done. This one was pretty cool. And it's an exercise that is from the Stoics, but I got a very heavy Marcus Aurelius vibe from this, but it's written, from this point of view, which is a little more digestible, I think, than some Stoic writings or Marcus Aurelius or whatever. But what can you do if you just focus on what you can control? Man, what do we do when the president disagrees with us on environmental issues? I don't know. There's nothing you can do. And this comes from a guy who was actually the governor of California. It says it's bogus politics. I know because I've been there before. When I was governor, the president didn't agree with me on the environment. I didn't whine. We built a million solar roofs, provided incentive, blah, blah, blah. He did a bunch of stuff where he could in the state that he was governor of. He says he didn't waste time trying to make it a national thing because he didn't have that kind of control. Yeah, he said things. Yeah, he pushed the agenda, but he focused on what he had and what he control. A lot of us don't have that kind of reach, right? We're not the governor of California or the president of the United States, but you are the president of your own life, right? There's an epidemic of complaining around the world about everything. I'm with him. I don't know if it's like just what like social media just kind of exposes our ability to complain and gripe really easy. Like it's really easy to make a comment, not even a thoughtful comment. It's really easy. He also talks about like, how certain people or whatever, they find it really easy to talk about how soft people are today. And like he said, he looks at their profile and he realizes the last time they did a push-up was probably when his movie Commando was in theaters. If you think people are soft, start by not being soft yourself. You have the power to do something hard and train every day. Boom. So, challenge he set this week. I want you to try something. Whenever you start to complain, stop and ask yourself, what can I do about it? If it it does not have to be something huge or world changing. It could be anything you can control. Then do it. Go do it. And he's right. Even the smallest action, the smallest thing you do will make you feel better. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is actually feeling like they are working towards something. And so we wind up just getting in this downward spiral of just complaining as opposed to doing. And it starts with you and it starts with the smallest thing. And that smallest thing can then build out. We talk about building habits all the time. If you have a habit of complaining, you can reverse that by turning that into a habit of doing. So, like he says, whenever you start to complain, stop and ask yourself, what can I do? So if you're, whatever it is, if you're if you're feeling out of shape, whatever, and you start to complain about something you saw on Instagram or whatever, like as Arnold would say, stop and do 10 push-ups or just work on something, as opposed to just complaining. May not be the best example, but I think you get the point. Sort of a lateral move into some leadership. I've had quite a few leadership questions with people, leadership discussions with people the past month. And I found this article, was in some email newsletter or whatever, and it talks about leadership over measureship. I think this is such a great article. This need to measure everything. And I've worked with, in my business that's 20 plus years old, I've had on 3 occasions, MBA, who's an employee who was going to help me sort of rearrange the business and stuff. And this isn't a knock on MBAs. It's just my experience was that we wanted to work on a lot of things that measured. I hear the term KPI in your business all the time. And I do some business consulting, business coaching, and they'll say like, well, we're looking at our KPIs, and they'll say, how many KPIs are you measuring? And they'll have like 20 or 22 KPIs. And I'm like, man, you need like 3. You've got too much going on. You need to simplify, because leadership, in my opinion, Leadership is about taking things that are complex and simplifying them so that others can understand. One of your jobs is to communicate clearly. Take the complex, break it down, communicate it clearly. That's really what you're there for. So, in this article, the result is a brutalist business philosophy defined by its relentless optimization of the status quo for the corporation's good at the expense of the customer. I mean, don't you feel that in just about every big business in the world that you have to interface with? Don't you feel that? Don't you feel that you're just another number? You're another tick in their KPI of success, right? Yeah, it's just terrible. And then it goes down into why being so measure fanatical, I guess, down to anti-human, directionless, no new ideas, lazily value the extricative nature of your business, right? And you'll see that a lot. Like, for example, you will, um, go online and fill out some information for some, product, like a bank product or whatever, and then the next thing you know, you're getting information from some other type of thing that you didn't actually give your information for. That's because they sold your data, right? So they figured out a way to make money by selling data for the thing that they're doing, and that is so uh, exploitative of you trusting that one organization. Politics is terrible about that. You sign up for one. You could sign up for like your local politician's email newsletter. Next thing you know, you're getting asked for money from them all the way up the chain, and that's both sides, Republicans and Democrats. They both have. I worked in the industry there. They both have software that does that, that shares emails and everything, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible because we've lost the humanity of doing business for this digital realm of doing business, and it's just all about measuring and you know taking advantage of every little detail. And it's true. There's a price that gets paid, right, for the corporation pointing all their his information, all their uh, energy at quantification and incremental efficiency, right? It's just opportunistic, right? It's extract. What's the word they used? Extractive. I like that word. And so ways to not do that, right? Ways to not be that way. Have empathy and be relentlessly pro-human. Elevate qualitative signals. Create narrative-driven strategies. Use minimum viable metrics. Lead through new ideas. Yeah. I mean, how many times have there's a big business or whatever, and you just feel like their product is just so behind the times. It's like nothing innovative happening. Yeah, they've just gotten too big, and it happens. And that's what this was about. I thought that was pretty cool. Then the flip side of that was this one: leadership is a fundamentally creative act. And this was interesting. I kind of start to drift off when people try to take their creative process and make it a actual written process and stuff. But it's always helpful. They're talking about I don't know if it's written by him or not. Uh, John Maeda. It's just talking about a person that ran a bigger business and the way they approached it, and this idea that it's leadership is a balance between being precise and improvising, right? And he's using this making of tofu as a relational story here, but he's talking about making sure you bring emotion into the business, which is just as important as not having emotion. And that's always been a struggle for me because I'm a professional graphic artist, but I was trained as a classical fine artist. And the difference there is that we're creating art versus doing commercial visual work for other people, right? One is that another person is paying you to uh, develop their vision. The other is you are developing your internal vision. And I think you need a good melding of two to be a good leader in a business that you're running. And this the quote, "Against conventional wisdom that suggests leaders should suppress feelings, I found that more emotions, not fewer, enhance leadership." And it's not emotions such as like, you know, jealousy or, being comparing yourself to others or being angry. He's talking about having empathy and caring what people say and caring about the people that work for you and caring about your craft and caring about your product. And it goes into how this Meta dude organized his week by this approach. And he's got a whole thing here about ABC acronym stands for architecting, building, and crafting. Architecting, building, and crafting. And he broke his week down by beginning with tactical work and ending with like higher level strategy, right? So he's using Mondays for meeting deadlines, like getting things out the door, being unblocked for the rest of the week. Fridays for mapping out like all the external things that he's dealing with and things that might be blocking him from getting the things done. Right. So the A architecting, right? So he would be working on these things and he uses these words, but it's really uh, what external forces will disrupt us, which external internal bridges need building, what internal forces are moving us, right? So that's the architecting part. And then he's got the other part, building and crafting, right? Uh, what we tell people to do, what isn't making sense, what hygiene needs tending. So like duties, like what things do I have to take care of in order to make sure people have the things they need and stuff, and then managing deadlines over deployments and dependencies, right? I tend to work the opposite way, which I mean, I don't think it matters how you work, but after reading this, I feel like I tend to work the opposite way, and I've sort of engineered my week so that on Mondays and Tuesdays I'm doing more creative things and more things where I'm thinking or things where I'm sort of setting things up to be production for the rest of the week because I know that as the week goes on, I'll become more mentally tired and distracted from external forces and stuff like that. And so I need to be more production nuts and bolts minded as Wednesday, Thursday, Friday come along, right? As more demands are put on me from other people and I have to use my brain differently to solve problems that I know I can't control when I deal with them. But Mondays and Tuesdays, I know that I can. Also because I know that everyone else in the world is usually pretty hunkered down on Mondays, getting things done or whatever. So I sort of take that time and use that to be my thinking and my creative and my setting up time, which works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe you have external forces that keep you from having it work that way. But I just thought it was cool to think about it, break it down, and try to organize it in a way. Tying into that is this concept, the blissful zen of a good side project. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here in this article. It's a long article, but it is that we need, as creatives, as people working in the world, I mean, not if you are working at a desk behind a computer. I mean, even outside of that, I think we need things that we can control that are on our own. Let's say you work for someone else is very mentally beneficial to have a little side project. It doesn't have to be little, but a side project going on. Maybe it's a charity or, you know, for a lot of people, it's like coaching their kids sport, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever they are. It's that. I don't there's a whole thing we could get into with that, but what I'm talking about is like a good little side project, something that you're always kind of tinkering with or whatever, and how that can bring you a level of zen into the other things that you do to make money. I'll link this one up. This is a good read about finding inspiration and being able to let that overflow into the other things you do. And it oddly enough, it can be more work to inspire you to do more work, but it's what we do as people, we work. I just want to quickly touch on this one that someone sent me. I didn't like it for sure because I'm not a big Jeff Bezos fan, but he sent this, apparently he stepped down as CEO of Amazon, and it's, you know, everybody tries to be Steve Jobs, right? So he's sending this inspirational email or whatever. And I'll link this up, but it is like the weirdest thing that I've read. And it, it goes on about not being not being average, basically, right? It doesn't knock on being average, but it's telling people to work hard and that they will have to work hard to be unique, to be distinct, to really put effort into that thing that makes you different from everyone else. And it's this weird. He links he posts this uh, section from his Richard Dawkins book, and it's just weird about how biology works to maintain the status quo. It keeps you alive, and what he's saying is don't let the environment, don't let others make you be like everyone else. Like really work and strive to be different. And I don't think it works. I haven't followed him a lot. I just think it didn't really make much sense. I mean, I get the idea. I think he probably used AI to write this. I mean, I actually see lots of M dashes in the in the email here. So yeah, maybe he used AI or whatever. Maybe Amazon's got some AI thing going on, but whatever. I just thought it was funny in juxtaposition to this one, which someone posted about Steve Jobs. And everybody wants to be Steve Jobs, but this one, I'm a big Steve Jobs fan, always have been. But this here, Heyman, I don't know the guy's name. He he sent this email, or no, this is a story of what he did. Was this guy's name was Steve Heyman. His name was Steve, and he worked at Next, which was, you can get into the history. It was the company that Steve Jobs started before he came back to Apple after he was fired back in the 90s. Yeah, 90s. So this guy named Steve working at Next. Steve Jobs, the owner, starter of the company. And he noticed that Steve Jobs' email wasn't steve@next.com, but he was Steve. So he wanted to get steve@next.com. And he was like the IT guy or something, and he just did it. And then the next thing he knows, he starts getting like thousands of emails of people trying to email Steve Jobs. And he's like, oh shit. And he's getting some stuff that he probably shouldn't get and all that. So he set that up and started getting the emails, and that was a bad idea, right? So suddenly a whole cavalcade of misdirected emails winding up in my inbox. They thought they were emailing Steve, but they were not, because his was S Jobs. Anyway, he says, okay, of course I didn't read any of it, whatever. But he sent Steve Jobs this email. He thought he was going to get crushed, but he said, well, I better tell him. So he said, hi, I'm new here. I did something dumb, and I set up a email alias so that Steve would go to me. My name's Steve, whatever. It's a bad idea. I'm sorry. I've changed it to goes to you and not me. I think that makes more sense. My apologies. And then Steve Jobs, in classic fashion, just responded with, great idea. Thank you. It's just a funny story, but the point of it is that's Steve. That was Steve Jobs. He was just very to the point. People thought that he was who he was, you know, angry, jealous. He would crush you, and he would do all those things too. But he also had empathy, like for the grand idea, and it's a good thing to learn, that the way that this guy set that up and communicated with him very cleanly, very succinctly, very short, and just told him he did it, owned the problem, he fixed it, didn't create a problem for Steve Jobs, and just there you go. And he just said, thank you. I mean, the guy's really busy, right? Steve Jobs is a very busy guy, but that's just all he said was great idea. Thank you. You know? Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting juxtaposing that versus this Jeff Bezos like convoluted overthought thing that he clearly used AI to write. All right, another personality investigation here was this one from this is from Tim Ferriss Instagram, but it was talking about Seth Godin. If you've never looked up Seth Godin, go to his website. It's really good stuff. But a couple of things that I guess Tim Ferriss is pulling out, and a couple of these, how Seth Godin processes email. He says he starts every reply with, "I don't invest, I don't take pictures, and I don't go to meetings. How can I help you?" He says usually people want one of those three things, and if they're honest, they'll go away. It's a little litmus test that he puts out in front, which is pretty clever. I'd heard, I forget who it was. It was some famous science fiction author or whatever that a friend of mine had potentially opportunity to work with, but the guy had in his footer like, "I'm super busy. Someone else will probably respond to you before I will." And it was like his agent or whatever was the gatekeeper, and he had learned that he had to have someone else do that stuff before he could get to it, because he would tend to say yes to everything and just never have time to do anything. Why everyone should blog every day? Everyone should blog, even if it's not under their own name, every single day. If you're in public making predictions and noticing things, yeah, your life gets better, because you will find a discipline that can't help but benefit you, right? If you want to do it in a diary, that's fine. But the problem with diaries is they're private. You can start hiding. Yeah. In public. In this blog, there it is. 6 weeks ago, you said this. 12 weeks ago, you said that. Are you able every day to say one thing that's new that you're willing to stand behind? I think that's just a huge, wonderful practice. And I agree 100%. That's why I do this podcast. And then the other one. Yeah, the story of money. And you need to understand you're always going to have to trade something for it. And you need to be very clear with yourself what you're willing to trade. And that is, man, that's some great advice, because I worked in this web design, web development industry, software development industry for so long. And it was a friend of mine who, it was like a decade ago, he said, hey, bro, you are in the services industry. You need to get zen about working in the services industry. You do things for people, and then they pay you for you doing the things. So you're exchanging your time to do things for those people. You can't hate your clients. You can't hate them asking you to do things. And once I kind of absorbed that and got zen about that, my life was way better in terms of living with and dealing with what I do. And I actually enjoy helping people. It's what I do. And that comment helped me get down with it, because everyone or a lot of people in the web design industry, they're always trying to create like a product or to productize everything so that they can lower the amount of effort they have to put into directly interfacing with a client, with a person. And that is the exact opposite of what you need to be doing if you're in a services industry. So yeah, those are three really good ones. Seth Godin is always smarter than you think.
The fact that you ask that question means that you know the answer. You don't have to ask me. I don't need to give you permission for that. You have to be an adult and say, I don't need to win, I need to learn. So that's what's holding you back, is pretending that somebody else needs to give you permission to be an adult. So go out there and be shit at something, and don't care if anybody makes fun of you because you keep tapping. That's how you get good.
He is using, first of all, this is Chris Burns. Oh, sorry. Chris Bones. I love this man. He is using a jujitsu metaphor about people trying to win every frigging role. And that is not the point. The point is to learn. You're going to get beat. Someone is always bigger, better, stronger, faster. They've been doing it longer, whatever. There's always someone out there. And your job as an adult in the world is to learn. And we forget that. We forget that's what we're here for. We're here to learn and get better. I love his philosophical musings as much as his instructionals, and go follow him. All right, here's one with this has made the rounds. Someone just directly asked me if I'd seen this because I have two sons. They're both basically men or you know, about to be 19 and a 22-year-old, both in college, and what I thought about this. Anthony Mackie, the new Captain America, well, not really new anymore. He's been doing it for a long time, but says American masculinity has been declining for the last 20 years.
Homes in our communities for one reason or another. But I raised my boys to be young men. And however you feel about that, you feel about that. Right. But my boys will always be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, sir, no, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always open the door for a lady. They will always make sure that their mother is taken care and provided for. They will always be men. And that's always since they were 2 years old. Every time I left for a job, I tell my 15-year-old, you're the man of the house. You make sure these doors are locked every night. This alarm is on. You text me or you call me every night before you go to bed and you wake up.
I love that.
Because we're men. In the past 20 years, we've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes and our communities for one reason or another.
Let that go a little bit. Some of the comments are brutal. A lot of them are like, nah, man, that's not about being a man. That's about like everyone should be respectful and all this stuff. And yeah, you're right. It should be. But I would ask those people, did you raise boys? Did you raise boys to being men? Have you done that process? It's not easy. There's a lot of stuff in the world that pulls young men towards like disrespect and anti-masculine things, right? I don't think there's like a crisis. I'm not going to be a podcaster here that's talking about there's a crisis, but I do think we have to, as fathers and other people that are around other young men, we do have a responsibility to tell them and to lead them and to make sure they're doing those things that are traditional masculine role. And I think a lot of people get that confused just because it's sort of accepted as a masculine, let's put it in the masculine category, doesn't mean it's for a man. It is for everyone. Yes, well, young men and young women should be respectful 100% to everyone. In particular, he's talking about raising his sons to be that way. Be the man of the house. And what he means is be the defender, to fall into that role. Of course, women and girls can fall into that role too. He's not talking about that. He's talking about raising his sons to be that way. I 100% agree with him. I do think it is, I guess, nowadays old-fashioned, but I think it's also important. I know that a lot of people make their way through the world and they don't think about these things. They don't think about these things at all. I know a lot of people that I've interacted with, I've had conversations with, that just don't, they're just on a different wavelength. They're not thinking about protective things, about the respect that they should be leading into others and things like that. They just aren't there. They're not thinking about those things. And I know some of those people have young sons. I see it. I've seen them. Yeah. I don't think he's wrong. If you feel like I'm wrong, let me know. If you feel like he's wrong, let me know. Don't know if you're don't really need any audio on this one, but this one, in relation to the last thing we just talked about with Anthony Mackie, this video is not, I don't think it's funny at all. A lot of the comments are about being funny, but this guy, I don't know where they were. Oh, WWE, whatever. They're trying to make their way up this escalator or something. The escalator is going the opposite way. So in this case, it's going down. They're trying to make their way up to get out of this crowd. And there's this one guy who's trying, and he can't, he doesn't have the physical stamina or whatever to make it happen. He just dies at the top here. And it's like the comment says, this is one of the most dangerous things that I've seen recently. Fans tired of waiting to go up an escalator to cross a bridge tried to look running backwards up the escalator with dramatic consequences. Like the guy can't even make it. And some of these guys, they can barely make it too. I don't know if I've ever tried running up a big escalator like that, but I know that I can do it because of the training that I've done. But this in comparing it to when Anthony Mackie was talking about raising his kids, one of the things I always made sure with my sons was to make them understand the benefits and the self-defense position that it puts you in to be in good shape. Both of my young men are in incredible shape. They are top of the food chain in terms of being physically fit. They're both black belts. It is incredibly important from a self-defense standpoint in this world to be some level of physically fit. This is a great example of, this person, and I don't know this person, and I'm picking on him. I don't know him. It's not just him. It's anyone that's like him. Probably goes through life thinking they have a certain level of capability where they clearly do not. So, you want to learn anything from social media is when you see things like this, go seek out some training, even if it's Planet Fitness or Orange Theory or whatever. Go join something, get a little more fit, learn what you're capable of. This guy probably thought he could do it. Got to the top, realized, not going to happen. That's not the place to learn that, right? You don't see he's upset. You don't want to learn it in this scenario. You want to know about it going into this beforehand, right? Yeah. All right. That does it for this debrief episode. I hope you learned something. Not that I'm here to necessarily teach you, but I hope you got something out of that. If anything, maybe you learned that you can actually look at social media. I thought it was all Instagram, and there's some articles in there, but you can actually look at social media. You can use the internet to get better. It's not just there to remind you that the world's ending every day. It's not just there for you to go before you go to bed, doom scrolling until you fall asleep to, oh God, the world's going to end. You can actually find things, learn from them, get better. That's what we all want to do. 1% every day. Guys, if you enjoyed this, give me a like, write a review, leave a comment, do something, help me out. Until next time, get after it.